I'm sitting in my seat, 2 rows away from the stage, and Jay-Z is walking through this tunnel, and it's just like this whole adrenaline rush is just pumping. He comes on stage and he's singing New York. Jay-Z wasn't feeling that. Jay-Z feels like I disrespected him as opposed to praising him, respecting him, honoring him, sharing that moment with him.
September 13th, 2009. Lil Mama walked onto the VMAs stage during Jay-Z and Alicia Keys' Empire State of Mind performance. Jay-Z's face said everything. He stepped back, visibly annoyed. Alicia Keys pretended she didn't exist.
Like, I was definitely caught up in the moment. And, he was backing up. And when I got home, I realized he said, "Oh, you gonna see painted, huh?" I realized it's now that I'm home.
Right.
Then he walked away.
30 seconds on stage, 15 years of career destruction. Even Beyoncé tried to stop her before it happened. But what really destroyed Lil Mama wasn't just interrupting the performance, it was what Jay-Z did next. So let's get into it. In 2009, Nyasha Lil Mama Kirkland was living every young rapper's dream. At just 19 years old, she had conquered the charts with Lip Gloss, a bubblegum anthem that defined a generation of teenage girls. MTV had crowned her the host of America's Best Dance Crew, giving her a weekly platform alongside Randy Jackson and JC Chases. Her debut album, VYP, Voice of the Young People, had established her as hip-hop's premier female voice for Gen Z. But behind the success, Lil Mama was struggling with something no amount of fame could fix: grief.
Okay, so in 2007, when I went to shoot Shorty Get Loose the next day after my mother's funeral, I was already tapping out. They was like, "You gotta finish the album."
2 years earlier, Lil Mama had lost her mother to breast cancer. While other teenagers were worrying about prom dates and college applications, she was balancing a music career with watching her mother fade away. The industry didn't pause for her pain. Deadlines remained deadlines. Performances still needed to happen, and the machine kept grinding forward. By 2008, despite her outward success, Lil Mama was internally done. The album release felt hollow without her mother there to celebrate. The television hosting duties became a way to stay afloat financially while processing her trauma. She was making between $40,000 and $70,000 per week on America's Best Dance Crew. But money couldn't fill the void where her biggest supporter used to be. September 13th, 2009, her grandmother's birthday, was supposed to be a special night. The MTV VMAs were returning to New York City, and Lil Mama had earned her place among hip-hop royalty. She arrived late to the ceremony, missing the explosive moments that would define the evening. Kanye West interrupting Taylor Swift's acceptance speech. Janet Jackson's emotional tribute to her brother Michael, who had died just months earlier.
So he sits me down in the second row. Mind you, I done missed everything from like all of the controversial stuff that took place that night, like with Taylor and, Janet and everything.
The cameramen from her TV show had upgraded her seating, moving her from the back rows to the second row, right behind Lady Gaga. She was 2 rows away from the stage when Jay-Z began his entrance for what would become one of the most iconic VMA performances in history.
I'm sitting in my seat, 2 rows away from the stage, and Jay-Z is walking through this tunnel, and it's just like this whole adrenaline rush is just pumping. He comes on stage and he's singing New.
The moment Jay-Z walked through that tunnel, something shifted in the atmosphere. The energy was electric, the crowd was losing their minds, and then Alicia Keys joined him for Empire State of Mind, the song that would become New York's unofficial anthem. For Lil Mama, watching 2 artists she deeply respected celebrate their shared hometown hit different. This wasn't just entertainment. This was personal. She was a Brooklyn native watching Brooklyn royalty claim their crown. The song spoke directly to her experiences growing up in the projects, hustling to make it out. carrying the dreams of everyone who looked like her. What happened next would haunt her for the next 15 years. Caught up in the euphoria of the moment, feeling the pull of her city's anthem, Lil Mama stood up and walked toward the stage. In her mind, she wasn't interrupting. She was joining a celebration of everything that made her who she was. But perception is reality in entertainment, and her reality was about to become a nightmare. As Lil Mama made her way onto the stage, she was operating from pure emotion. In her mind, this was a family moment. Brooklyn supporting Brooklyn, young New York honoring the legends who paved the way. She positioned herself next to Jay-Z, nodding along to the music, genuinely feeling like she was part of something historic. But Jay-Z's reaction told a different story entirely. The body language was unmistakable. As Lil Mama approached, Jay-Z stepped back. His facial expression shifted from performance mode to visible annoyance. This wasn't the welcoming energy she had expected from someone she considered hip-hop family.
When I told the person next to me, I'm going up there. He got up, moved. I went around. I went to B. I was like, you coming? She was like, oh, what? Like, you know,
you sound just
classic
like
B.
Even Beyoncé, sitting in the front row, had tried to stop the disaster from unfolding. When Lil Mama announced her intentions to the person sitting next to her, they immediately got up and moved. She approached Beyoncé, asking if she wanted to join her on stage. Beyoncé's confused response, "Oh, what?" should have been the warning sign that this wasn't the communal celebration Lil Mama imagined it to be. But she was already committed. The momentum carried her forward, even as every sign pointed toward impending catastrophe. The performance continued, with Lil Mama standing awkwardly to the side, trying to vibe with the music while Jay-Z pointedly ignored her presence. Alicia Keys, so focused on delivering a flawless performance, didn't even realize what was happening. Years later, Keys would admit she never saw Lil Mama on stage because she was so locked into the music. The immediate aftermath was confusion and panic. Lil Mama genuinely believed she had shared a bonding moment with two artists she revered. The idea that her actions could be seen as offensive or disrespectful hadn't crossed her mind. She was operating from a place of pure fandom and hometown pride, not calculating career advancement. But in an industry where power dynamics dictate everything, intention means nothing if the perception is negative. And Jay-Z's perception was crystal clear. This young woman had disrespected him on one of the biggest stages in music.
Jay-Z wasn't feeling that. Jay-Z feels like I disrespected him as opposed to praising him, respecting him, honoring him, sharing that moment with him.
Lil Mama would spend the next decade and a half trying to explain that her intentions were pure. She wasn't trying to steal anyone's moment or hijack their performance. She was a young woman who got caught up in the emotion of seeing her city celebrated on the world's biggest stage. But explanations don't matter when you've crossed the wrong person. And in hip-hop, there is no one more wrong to cross than Jay-Z. The phone started ringing before Lil Mama even made it home. Tyrese was the first to call, confused about whether she had been an official part of the performance. Her heart was already racing from the adrenaline and embarrassment of the moment, and now she had to field questions she wasn't prepared to answer.
Tyrese called my phone as soon as I got home. He was like, yo, playing. And then when that ass was on there going, ah. Nah, let me stop. But no, seriously. Tyrese had hit my phone. He was like, bro, you ain't tell me you was performing.
But Tyrese's call was just the beginning. By morning, every major media personality in hip-hop and R&B was weighing in on what was already being called one of the most cringeworthy moments in VMA history. Wendy Williams led the charge with her signature blend of shock and judgment. The Breakfast Club crew dissected every second of the incident with their morning audience. Ed Lover, a respected voice in hip-hop radio, offered his analysis. But the most devastating blow came from Angie Martinez, who actually spoke directly to Jay-Z about the incident.
Eventually, Angie Martinez, who she talked to Jay, and he was just like, yeah, I didn't like it and everything, and and he was so angry.
When Jay-Z told Angie Martinez that he didn't like it and that he was angry, those words carried the weight of a career death sentence. This wasn't just an artist expressing mild annoyance. This was hip-hop royalty publicly expressing displeasure with a much younger, much less powerful artist. What hurt Lil Mama most wasn't just the criticism. It was the complete absence of protection from the industry leaders who should have guided her through the crisis. Instead of offering mentorship or even basic human decency to a grieving young woman who had made a mistake, the hip-hop community chose to participate in her public humiliation. The narrative quickly shifted from young artist makes emotional mistake to disrespectful wannabe tries to hijack legend's moment. Every blog, every radio show, every entertainment news program reinforced the same story. Lil Mama had crossed a line, and she needed to be punished for it.
I think I was the first person to get super roasted on Twitter.
Right.
I think I was the first one to get really, like, you talking about getting it back? Oh, no, couldn't take it. I was sick. I was like, this is not right. What is this?
X was still relatively new in 2009, but Lil Mama became one of the first celebrities to experience the full force of social media mob mentality. The platform that had once been a tool for connecting with fans became a weapon of mass humiliation. Celebrities joined regular users in making jokes at her expense, creating a feedback loop of ridicule that seemed to have no end.
I was sick. I was like, this is not right. What is this? No, I'm not going through this. Not right now in my life. But yeah, they got me good on Twitter. Woo, they got me.
The timing couldn't have been worse. Lil Mama was already dealing with the loss of her mother, already questioning her place in an industry that had forced her to work the day after her mother's funeral. Now, she was facing a level of public humiliation that would have broken most people. But the worst part wasn't the strangers on the internet. It was the silence from the people who mattered most. While Lil Mama has never directly accused Jay-Z of orchestrating a campaign against her, the pattern that emerged after the VMAs incident speaks for itself. Opportunities that should have been natural fits for her began disappearing. Record deals became harder to secure. Collaborations dried up. The industry machine that had once embraced her suddenly turned cold. What made the silence particularly painful was understanding Jay-Z's own character. Lil Mama had studied his career long before the incident, watching how he handled his own controversies and conflicts. She knew he wasn't someone who typically engaged in public feuds with much smaller artists. His silence wasn't mercy, it was strategic.
Of course that hurt it, bro. That shit hurt it. I'm sitting up there looking like Anita Baker, like, I apologize. On every damn episode, I'm going to Tyra Banks, going to this one, that one.
The apology tour became a form of public penance that lasted for years. Lil Mama appeared on every show that would have her. Tyra Banks, various radio programs, podcasts, anywhere she could attempt to explain her side of the story. But each appearance only reinforced the narrative that she had done something wrong and needed to keep asking for forgiveness. The psychological toll was devastating. In later interviews, Lil Mama would reveal that while she never felt, she could understand how someone in her situation might reach that point. The isolation, the constant criticism, the feeling that an entire industry had turned against her. It was enough to break anyone's spirit.
You could feel so alone that you don't want to be here anymore. Or you could feel so beat up on that it's like, damn, who's with me? You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm by myself. Does it even matter to be here anymore?
Social media amplified the cruelty in ways previous generations of artists never had to endure. Where past controversies might have blown over in a few weeks, Twitter kept the Lil Mama incident alive indefinitely. Every few months, the video would resurface, generating new waves of memes and mockery. The cruelest irony was that Lil Mama had to become friends with her own humiliation. As social media evolved and the incident became part of internet culture, She had no choice but to laugh along with jokes that cut deep. The alternative was to appear bitter or unable to move on, which would have only made things worse. Even Alicia Keys, who could have offered grace or understanding, chose to essentially ignore what happened.
So I'm not going to talk about this because the moment was too amazing, and to be able to be in New York City singing, Empire State of Mind with Jay-Z was far more incredible than anything else, and so I would like to just leave that vision in the people's forefront of their mind.
Her diplomatic non-response, focusing on the amazing moment rather than acknowledging Lil Mama's humanity, reinforced the message that preserving the performance's legacy was more important than showing compassion to a young woman who had made a mistake. The conspiracy wasn't coordinated or explicit. It was something much more powerful, the industry's collective decision that Lil Mama's career was an acceptable sacrifice to preserve the respect and authority of more powerful artists. Jay-Z didn't need to make phone calls or issue ultimatums. His displeasure was enough. His silence was the loudest statement of all. 15 years later, Lil Mama has found peace through faith and perspective. She refuses to give Jay-Z or anyone else the power to define her worth or control her narrative. But the cost of that night in 2009 extends far beyond her individual career. It revealed the brutal realities of power in hip-hop culture. Industry insiders knew exactly what had happened and what Lil Mama should have done to survive it. She should have immediately capitalized on the attention, released new music, and turned the controversy into momentum. But that would have required treating her genuine emotional moment as a calculated publicity stunt, which felt like a betrayal of her own integrity.
I spoke to a very well-established actor who told me that the only thing I did wrong after 9/13 was not put out an album. You should have put out an album to capitalize off of it. And I was like, that's everything but what I wanted to do because it truly was a genuine stance.
Instead, Lil Mama chose authenticity over strategy. She stepped back from music when she was grieving, refused to exploit her own pain for profit, and prioritized her mental health over her career. In any other industry, these would be admirable choices. In hip-hop, they were career. The lesson was clear: cross Jay-Z, and you don't just lose opportunities, you lose the right to make mistakes while maintaining your humanity. Years later, when Lil Mama auditioned to play Left Eye in TLC's biopic Crazy Sexy Cool, she almost didn't go because she felt defeated by the industry's treatment of her. It took a gospel song, Mary Mary's Go Get Your Blessing, to remind her that her talent was still valid regardless of what had happened at the VMAs. When T-Boz and Chili chose her for the role, it marked the first time since 2009 that major industry figures had publicly validated her talent. The casting was based purely on ability. She reminded them of their deceased group member in ways that had nothing to do with controversy or public perception. But even this victory was bittersweet. By 2013, when the movie aired, Lil Mama had lost 4 crucial years in an industry where momentum is everything. Artists who debuted after her had surpassed her, and the young fans who had once loved lip gloss had moved on to new sounds. The ripple effects extended beyond her individual career. Young artists, particularly young women, and especially young black women, learned that certain lines could never be crossed. The industry's tolerance for mistakes and growing pains was not equally distributed. Today, Lil Mama has committed to being the industry elder she needed in 2009. When young artists make mistakes, she offers guidance instead of judgment. She reaches out instead of turning away. She provides the fellowship that was denied to her. In 2021, more than a decade after the incident, Jay-Z finally offered public forgiveness during a Twitter Spaces conversation. Of course, he said when asked if he forgave her. That's our sister. Man, we love her. But the forgiveness came too late to save the career that had been damaged in the aftermath. The VMAs incident wasn't just about one night or one mistake. It was a masterclass in how power operates in hip-hop culture. It demonstrated that talent, intention, and even genuine remorse mean nothing if you lack the institutional protection that comes with being connected to the right people. Lil Mama's story is ultimately about survival. She survived the loss of her mother, the destruction of her career, the cruelty of social media, and the indifference of an industry that should have protected her. She survived by refusing to let other people's opinions define her worth and by maintaining faith in something larger than the entertainment business. The girl who walked onto that stage in 2009 was seeking connection and celebration. What she found instead was the harsh reality that in hip-hop, as in life, power determines who gets to make mistakes and who gets destroyed by them. Jay-Z may be the king of New York, but Lil Mama proved that sometimes survival is more valuable than a crown. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.